Whole panel here. Bobby Marks joining us. Bobby, your reaction to JJ Redick being the new head coach of the Lakers?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a fresh perspective here, but I think it's important, and I think Woj laid it out. He's got to hire the right staff. That's priority one. I lived through it in 2013. We had hired Jason Kidd right from playing. Jason put together a staff, and there was a major learning curve for the first 40 games here. And it eventually turned around. And I said it yesterday, what JJ Redick interviewed for with this Laker roster might be a little bit different than what we see in October here. So there's got to be that flexibility here as far as what he is going to be coaching here. But the staff is the most important thing right now.
What is up? Welcome in King's Court. Thursday, June 20th. How we doing? We're filing in. 30 already have checked in or are here. Welcome. What is up? We got a full day of content for you. As you heard at the top, JJ Redick has been hired as the assistant coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. 4 years, $32 million reportedly. Man, that is a lot of money to pay an assistant coach. Can you believe that? He must be like the highest paid assistant coach of all time. So we can talk a little bit more about that. He joins the list, and it's not a bad list of first time. Well, these guys were first time head coaches just stepping out onto the court, no coaching experience. Jason Kidd, NBA Finals this year. Mark Jackson, Doc Rivers, Jerry Reynolds, Buddy, Larry Bird. A lot of those guys had success, but JJ Redick stepping into a much different situation as assistant coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And who is he going to bring in with him to coach the team? There's some names being floated around already. It should be interesting. We are awaiting comment from the Los Angeles Lakers head coach, LeBron James, on the hire. Really kind of interesting to see what his take's going to be. You know, LeBron and JJ had their little podcast together, whatever it was, Wine and Basketball, talking wild stuff like they created certain aspects of the game. Right, you did. And here's the other thing. Rob Pelinka was on record many times, and this was one of the reasons they chased after, one of the huge reasons they chased after Dan Hurley, player development. If you've been around the King's Court a while, then you know I covered Stockton all last season and strictly really honed in on the player development down there and how it was meshing with the main roster here in Sacramento. Because with the CBA, I say it all the time, there's a premium that's going to be put on developing your draft picks and drafting right. We talked a little bit about the NFL last night, and we talked about the quarterback position, how it's a make or break kind of thing. You can set your franchise back many years if you draft the wrong guy. Well, it's not going to be that big of a deal in the NBA, but I think it is going to bring some more parity year to year. You may see teams that take a little extra step without doing much with their roster, and it's because of that piece that I'm talking about, the player development. There's also a lot of other news. We've got the draft 6 days away. There's some names that seem to be getting mentioned more than others here in Sacramento. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. If you want to talk draft, if you want to talk about certain players, we can do that. If you don't like that, we're going to be back tonight at 8 o'clock. And we'll probably start the draft process going through prospects. We have done that here for a little bit over the last couple of weeks. We haven't hit it as hard because there's been a lot of other news, and there is more news today, by the way. How about an NFL player driving his car into a restaurant and being arrested for DUI? I don't get it. I've got a take on it. I don't get it. I'll start this way by saying this. 10, no, scratch that. 15, no, scratch that. Tomorrow I'm 40. So 20 years ago, you guys, my best friend at the time, we're still very good friends, childhood friend. He signed on as a free agent to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. And I got a very, very cool and quick inside look at all of the things that are offered to NFL players. And that was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. The things and services they had in place to avoid situations like this. That's long before Uber. That's long before Lyft. They had services 24/7. Didn't matter where the hell you were at, somebody could come pick you up. So if that was 20 years ago, you know for damn sure they probably got drones they can send from the facility to come pick you up. Even if they've got to drag you by the back of your shirt, they will figure it out. So why players continue to drink and drive, and in this case, it's a player that's a fringe player. He was signed as an undrafted free agent. He stuck to the practice squad. Then he got signed to the reserve. It's basically a way to keep your practice squad. And at any time, teams can poach a player off your practice squad. You have to remember that. But it's a way to hold on to them without having them on the 53. And, right before the season, here we go. And you run your car into a restaurant? Come on, man. It's so dangerous. I'm sure everybody here knows somebody that's been affected by drinking and driving. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. There is one person that I do want to recognize. I saw him in the chat, and he is right here. Bane, my man, thank you so much, dude. I don't know why my podcast didn't upload this morning, but when I sat down to the computer about 30 minutes ago, I was like, oh, great, because you got to insert the ads and do all this stuff. And I had a thank you to you in that. It'll be up in a second. But Bane, thank you so much for the chat last night, or the super chat for Grant and I's birthday. That was pretty freaking cool. That was very gracious. That definitely blew both of us away. We were still talking about it once we finished the show. So thank you, Bane. Very, very much appreciated. Dennis, let's go, dude. I always know, like, if my phone starts going zzz, zzz, 20 minutes before a show, I don't even have to look anymore. I'm pretty sure it's Dennis in my DMs. Dennis is always climbing up in the DMs. It's all right, dude. I love it. It's all good. Dennis, man, are you a door-to-door salesman? I mean, you've got to be some type of salesman. Maybe not door-to-door. Inside sales, Dennis, what is it? Because you are selling this Levine trade, man. I'm gonna package you up, Dennis, and send you to the Kings front office and let you do your work down there, my man. But anyways, Bane off it again. I didn't even read your chat. JJ Redick, if you are just joining us now, JJ has been named the assistant coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. 4 years, $32 million. He's putting his staff together. Now, that is going to be a very important piece. Bobby Marks is right about that. He's got to surround himself with people that are smarter than him, people that have been in the game longer than him. And I know his head coach, LeBron, is still playing in the league, but he needs some other guys that will counterbalance some of that. You almost need the yin and the yang. You need the two different sides when you're putting together a staff. And so some of the names that are popping up, a little bit impressive. We can talk about those in a little bit, though. Let's go. Assistant coach, good one. Yeah, he is the assistant coach. Jerry and I maintain LeBron should have been the coach of the Lakers, and LeBron still is the coach of the Lakers with this hire. This was LeBron's hire. What is JJ? JJ is great with X's and O's. He understands the game. He gets the game. There's no doubt about that. Now, on the broadcast with him and Doris Burke, I do agree with Grant. It's not as bad as Grant thought it was to me, but it was a little bit painful. There wasn't that chemistry. And now you're hearing names like, why don't you throw Stephen A. Smith in there? I don't know if I could do 2.5 hours of Stephen A. Smith, but they do need somebody to break up the monotony. And, Mike Breen, he is in a tough position. I love Mike Breen, but obviously this bounces JJ out of the booth and will open up a seat for somebody. Who will that be? Yeah, we're already starting to get some of the names in the chat. Steve Nash is one that has come up. I can give you a couple of the other ones since we're talking about them right now. Let me pull it up. I just had it sent to me. Let's see. JJ Redick. There's his contract. Let's see. Where are the names at? Names. Come to me. I had the names. 1, 2, 3. Up here. Names. Now. See, this is what happens when you're not organized, kids. If you are watching me right now, I am not the perfect picture of organization. I had this all lined up and ready to go. Pelinka, yes, he wants a coaching staff. We've already seen that. Jerry Buss. Okay, we will. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Finally. Well, this was a name we talked about yesterday, actually. Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo. Is he going to be on the Lakers bench? That would be very interesting. Jared Dudley, Sam Cassell. Interesting. So, and yes, if you are a clone, go ahead and put your jokes in if you want. Scott Brooks, that's a Sacramento name. You guys remember Scott Brooks, one of the lead assistants with Adelman, coach of the Thunder for a while. I love Scott Brooks. I know Grant has a good relationship with him as well. So those are some of the names being floated around. But again, JJ Redick, assistant coach of the Lakers, putting his staff together right now. Let's see. Oh boy. Buyer beware. Jay in Humboldt is up in the chat. What's up, Jay? How you doing, man? Was he listening to the piano man? Yeah, he's talking about the guy that got the DUI. Very possibly. Billy Joel could have been on the radio. I could see that happening. We'll get to his name in a second. He was a backup guy. But what's up, BJ? Sea-Dog. Yeah, this is on my radar too. Why is the NCAA trying to expand the tournament? If it ain't broke, why fix it? What does the NCAA do, Sea-Dog? The NCAA, they serve no purpose. They're looking for work. They're like that person in the office that acts like they're working and bringing value to the company, but they just have no work. They don't have anything to do. Kind of like Milton down in the basement with McDeepler. The NCAA is just, they're in the way. They're damaged goods. The conferences are basically running college sports these days. So look, I've heard of the field possibly expanding to over 100. If you're going to expand the field, it's not worth it to expand it to 72 or 77. Like, come on. If you're going to do that, then you've got to go a little bit bigger. That's just way too big of a change for so little return, in my opinion. Caruso to the Thunder for Giddey. Whoa, really? Did that just break? Did that break? I trust you, Sea-Dog. I'm going to refresh my page right here. That throws a wrench in things, guys. What do you think? Is this true? Is Caruso headed to the Thunder? The rich get richer, if that's the case. Wow. Giddey, how the hell do you get Caruso for Giddey? Giddey barely even played in the playoffs ever since he at the quote unquote scandal where he was allegedly dating somebody under the age of 18 and posting it online. It affected his just his game on the court. And by the way, I talked to people that were in buildings when the Thunder were in town. Giddey was taking it from the crowd at road games, or at least those games that my sources or my contacts were at. So, holy crap. I hope that is not true. Bane, thank you, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, you are one of the dudes. You are a founding father. You got in here on the ground level of the King's Court. That will never be forgotten. If C-Dog's saying it, I'm 100% going to believe it. C-Dog does not make stuff up, does not spit stuff out. That is nuts. C-Dog, do me a favor. Who broke that news? I'm guessing Shams or Woj. Let's see. Love the Kings. Yes, indeed. Levine. Yeah, you got to be out on Levine now. 100%. Wow. Holy crap. Let's bring Jay in really quick to dissect this. Jay, are you seeing these same reports that Caruso's on his way to the Thunder?
No. Is that true?
I'm trying to verify right now. That's what happens when I don't have a statistician or a producer behind me. I'm a one-man show, but C-Dog says he is on his way to Oklahoma City for Josh Giddey. Holy crap.
I don't think so.
C-Dog, are you trolling us? He's not trolling us. You can't even trade right now. What? Is there really an agreement? Bulls sent Alex Caruso back.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It is true. Unbelievable. Well, Kings fans, what do you think about that? Because I'm pretty sure the only reason that this Levine stuff came back up, and at least I was open to it, was because of Caruso. If he's on his way to the Thunder, this Thunder team's going all in. And by the way, they're not done. They want Isaiah Hartenstein too. And Hartenstein has interest in going there. So what's up, Jay?
What's going on? Obviously, the people in the chat have heard Zach LaVine rumors and Alex Caruso rumors come into the Sacramento Kings, and now that changes the ball game.
Completely changes.
Not necessarily. I like to see both sides of the spectrum, of course, as you know.
Sure.
And I was watching some Locked On Kings, and I also navigated my way to the Locked On Chicago Bulls podcast. And a lot of the podcasters on there were not against doing this trade. Obviously, Alex Caruso was the one thing that was kind of slowing them down on that. They were interested in obviously getting rid of Zach LaVine for having cap space. And another wrench in the road for the Chicago Bulls that I think we as Kings fans forget is that they have to re-sign DeMar DeRozan this offseason.
Correct.
And that's going to be hard. Not only that, they have to sign Patrick Williams, who's a young guy who they want to keep around. So Zach LaVine is just taking up pretty much all of their cap. Yeah. And they won't necessarily be able to sign these guys without going into the luxury tax.
Yep. And they're going to Colby White, they're going to have to find a way to get him an extension, something. He is not making very much money.
For sure, that role. Yep. Here's the funny part. You have Kobe White, but Lonzo Ball is going to give it a go.
Yeah, he opted in.
They're desperate to trade Zach LaVine, but how can Lonzo Ball trade meniscus with a dead guy, but you can't even trade LaVine at this point? You know, he's over here trading knees with dead people.
Yeah, that's been going on for many years, by the way.
Yeah. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, it's completely it happens with ACLs. It's so normal now to get a cadaver. Yeah. ACL, meniscus, whatever it may be.
They can't seem to trade freaking Zach LaVine. So one of the options that the guy on the Locked On Bulls podcast was interested in was Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter for Zach LaVine straight up. And they've kind of come to terms where, they're not super thrilling for a guy like Zach LaVine, but at this point, you do get upside with Kevin Huerter, and you can slot Harrison Barnes right in a rotation. Plus, he was available for 82 games last season. So when I asked, what the people in the chat think about giving up a Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter straight up for Zach LaVine, I believe the Bulls have the 15th pick this year. Can you double check that?
Yeah, I got you.
And if that is the case, first of all, I'm not giving up 13 in that package. We have the 13th pick.
The Bulls have 11.
They have 11? Oh, well, never mind then. I thought they had 15. And I would have been down to do a pick swap for 13 for 15, but I'm not going to throw in 13 because I look at it like we're getting Zach LaVine for Barnes, Huerter, and Malik Monk, because I know he's not going to the Bulls, but chances are he's not coming back to Sacramento. Rumor has it he's supposed to go to the Rockets now all of a sudden because of his last post. I don't know if you've seen that post.
I did see the post. I'm not making too much out of it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not either, but it looked nice wherever he was. It looked really
Mama,
cool.
we about to make it. We're taking off. Yes.
Yeah. So I think straight up Huerter and Barnes for LaVine. I was down to do that last night. I woke up this morning and thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm down to do that because then we'd be losing Barnes, Huerter, and Monk. So we're getting one player and we're losing 3. What do you think about that, Ryno? And what does the chat think about giving up just a straight up trade of Barnes and Huerter for Zach LaVine?
Well, we've talked about it since Tuesday. We asked Jerry just because Dennis was the one that has been pushing this pretty hard. So on the surface, and by the way, if you're going to go after a Kuzma, you're giving up multiple players too. This is one of those things where the Kings are going to give up 2 or 3 to get 1. And that was one of the concerns that I have. Look, on the first year with LaVine, yes, the salaries are basically going to balance out, right? So it's not going to make a huge difference between what you would be getting rid of with Barnes and Huerter versus what you're paying LaVine. But the problem I have is, are you ready to bet on Zach LaVine for the next 2-3 years of his contract after that?
Because that's where I'm at with it too, because once you trade for him, there's no trading out of him.
It's kind of, to me, certainly he could ball out, Jerry Reynolds thinks, and I kind of agree too. He's in a position in his career where he's had success or he's been hurt. It's been one of the two. So,
and I believe this last season, he scored 51 points in a single game.
Yeah, he had a big game last year. I don't know exactly what the number was. He can explode on the drop of a dime. He's got a quick release. And he's one of those true jump shooters too, Jay. When he shoots a jump shot, dude jumps. So
yeah. And with today, I think we were talking about it too, and I think you brought it up with today's sports sciences. These careers are extending. So yeah, he's 29 years old, but really he won't slow down until probably about 34, 35. So it's not like back in the day where you're like 30 and you're slowing down now. You got, with the sports science and the sports medicine we have today, you should be, Russell Westbrook can't shoot for shit, excuse my French, but he can still jump out the gym.
Yeah.
And he's, you know what I mean?
So
there's a lot of athletes that are older that still can jump out the gym.
If I'm the Kings right now, the first thing I'm doing, if this is a serious option, which I think it is, because they're the ones that reached out to the Bulls.
I'm not giving a first round. We're going to need that.
I know. Yeah, I know.
We're going to need that this year.
I know. I am getting as much medical as I can on Zach LaVine right now. Okay. I want everything across the books that the Bulls have. I want to speak to his physicians. I want to speak to the Bulls physician, because the deal, it's fine the first year, like we said, but you've already got Domas, which great piece. He's a team piece, though. He's not like an individual star, right? He's not an Anthony Edwards that's going to go out and dominate the game on his own, but he can dominate the game with a couple of other guys. But with his contract, Domas ain't going nowhere. I don't think anybody's going to want to, unless it's a perfect fit, take him on. So you bring on a salary like LaVine. If you get stuck with him and things don't work out, he still has the injury bug and he's under contract. So let me pull that up really quick so we can give everybody the exact numbers, because we talked about him yesterday. The exact numbers for LaVine are as follows. Next year, it's $43 million and just a little bit of change. The year after that, 45.9. So basically 46 in the 25-26 season. 26-27, 48.9, almost $49 million. So here's where I'm at. If you are not very confident that this dude has a lot left in the tank and that these injuries he's had have been independent injuries, not injuries that have compounded on top of each other, where it was like, oh, the knee was bad and now it wasn't just the meniscus, now it's the ACL and the meniscus, and now
It was
it's
just, I think this past season was his foot.
right. And you get concerned about ankle and foot injuries, but then on the flip side, Steph Curry had those for a minute, and guess what? He was just fine.
I mean, Kawhi, Paul George.
Yep.
Is
But
it
the
like,
big,
would you guys give up Herter Barnes for a Kawhi, even though Kawhi is 30-something and injured?
Of
Well,
course.
then we might as well say the same about Zach LaVine. I know he hasn't won a championship, but he's still all NBA second
No.
team caliber. If you're dropping 50 points in the
Yeah,
NBA,
but we've seen what scoring does here in Sacramento. It gets
well,
you
at this point, we
46,
need
48
scoring because
wins.
Barnes isn't a consistent offensively. Herter's out the gym. I don't know where he was. He was probably at Bennett's during the game. And then you got freaking Monk is on his way to Orlando. So
You're
and
going to need a little bit
Fox
more
can't
scoring.
score all the buckets himself. Fox is gonna get tired.
Dude, we've talked about balance at length here. You
Yeah.
can't. We've talked about burn rate, balance, all that stuff. But I guess what I'm saying with LaVine is, if you're not confident that this guy can give it another run and you take this on, you're going to be in the Bulls position in 2 seasons. You are going to be the Chicago
And that's
Bulls.
the risk you take. But is it worth the risk just giving up Barnes and Herter? Yes and
Yeah,
no.
it is.
Yes, I'm in the middle. And I'm not saying I'm not saying that LaVine is better than Kawhi. I'm just comparing injury history. And if you would be willing to do that trade for Kawhi Leonard with an injury history or Paul George with injury history, I'm not saying he's as good as those players, but he's not far from it. He's not far fetched. Honestly, he's those guys are all NBA first team caliber players. Zach LaVine's easily all NBA second team.
Yeah, but you're talking on the offensive side. Zach LaVine does not defend like Kawhi Leonard does, like Paul George does.
That's fair. Fair enough.
You know, and that's my concern. We've seen that offense cannot win enough games to get the Kings.
So what if we slot LaVine in at the 3 and then we have the Keon Ellis at the 2 or a Davion Mitchell at the 2?
Too small.
Hey, look, this is funny because I was thinking about this. We need rim protection, but first of all, you can't. Where does defense start? It starts on the perimeter. If you can't even get to the basket, there's no need for rim protection. So
yeah, but these guys, it's unrealistic to think you're going to keep pushing dudes out and keeping them out of the mid-range. I mean, the Kings at the end of the season, Keon gives them that ability that Kevin didn't.
He better play 78 plus games. I'm sorry, Sal. I know that's not going to happen, unfortunately. I'm hoping he plays at least 65.
I guess this is a no-brainer trade. Absolute no-brainer if Zach LaVine had 1 year left on his contract. No-brainer. You do the deal. But with this much time left on his contract, I
honestly like this much time left on his contract because you can make it mesh over years of chemistry, I'm hoping. Plus, like you said, you have Fox coming up for an extension. If he costs too much, we can – I don't want to say we keep LaVine and trade Fox, but that's going to be an option that we would have to look at because these guys are going to cost you $50 million apiece.
We haven't even said Keegan Murray's name.
We're keeping Keegan. There's no trading him. We're going to sign him. I hope they go into luxury tax to sign a guy like that because it's way too much upside to get rid of him now. Okay, he's a rookie. If it's not working, you sign him, and then you can do a sign-and trade or something like that.
You got those rose-colored glasses on, my man. I love the optimism, but it doesn't always work out that way. You know what I mean?
Of course not. Everybody has their own philosophy in each front office. It's going to be ran completely differently in each front office.
But that's what worries me, okay? Because what have we learned about Monty McNair over the last 3 years of his tenure here in Sacramento? He's patient and he's calculated, right? Now he is backed into a corner where he is probably outside of his comfort zone. he has to make a move. And so that's what,
Mhm.
again, just makes it so much more
But
for a
there's
fan.
no such thing as
I
Go
grind my
ahead.
teeth as a fan because there were ways to make this team better over the last 2 years that weren't drastic moves, that were moves that were right in Monty's wheelhouse. They just didn't happen, or the Kings didn't try to make them. Pascal Siakam apparently doesn't want to come to Sacramento because the Kings were criticizing his game at one point. Like, come on,
Well, okay, yeah, I mean, but think about this. Let's take that most recent big bum from Sacramento was we're trying to get Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby. You see what Pascal it just got 190 pretty
Yeah.
much for 4 years. So it's like, yeah, I would rather have Siakam than Levine, but you're still paying that $50 million for Siakam. Siakam is nowhere near the player offensively as Zach LaVine. Granted, defensively, he's a presence. So it's what do you prefer? Well, we're losing Monk. Our best shooter, allegedly, Herter, isn't shooting the ball. And Barnes isn't going to drop you 18 a night at this age. And then you have OG Anunoby, and I'm sure you've seen what's been going on over there with the New
Yeah,
York
of
Knicks.
course.
Both of those guys have 1 year left on their contract. You're not going to give up Harrison Barnes, Kevin Herter, who now have 2 years left on their contract at affordable prices, but also they want draft compensation. And you more than likely would have lost this year's pick and probably 2026's first
Oh,
round
yeah.
pick.
They wanted multiple picks.
Right. And we don't have a 2025 pick because that's going to the Hawks. So
Right.
now you're out 3 first round picks for the next 3 years on top of 2 players that are affordable that are in your rotation to take a risk that these guys may or may not stay next year. And if they do, it's still a $50 million contract that you're going to have to pick up. So you don't want to give up so many assets for a guy like OG Anunoby who says, you know what? I actually have all the leverage because you traded for me. And so you have to keep me because if you don't, then you've just lost me for after 2 months. You just rented me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
So that's why I actually kind of like how Levine's contract is structured is we have him for 3 years.
Yeah,
So it's
you
kind of like we
do.
go all in. We just
But
we put the poker chips in the middle of the table with Zach LaVine, but at the same time, it's at a discount with Harrison Barnes and Kevin Herter.
Well, I wouldn't say it's at a discount. I would say you have a suitor that's willing to take up the guy or take up the guys off your hands that you've been trying to get rid of for 18
Yeah.
months. Like that's literally what this is. This is a
Well, they've
garage
also
sale
been
by
trying
both
to get
teams.
rid of him too. So it's like it's almost like a win-win for
It's a
both.
garage sale.
Yeah.
And I guess here's the thing. If we're talking about a Kings team that won a first round matchup in the playoffs this last year, that won 50 games and still needed to find a way to improve, I don't think anybody would be saying Zach LaVine's name.
We would not be
Almost
saying Zach
nobody.
LaVine. Not at all. I agree. We would probably look for like that Alex Caruso move, someone
Yep.
that can be with us deep into the playoffs, but definitely not a Zach LaVine.
Yep. So it's an interesting chat. Jay, I'm gonna let you go because I got Dirk waiting, but thanks for the call, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Come back. Hey, come back at 8:00. Grant and I will be back, and always love to talk some hoops. So
All right.
Good job by you. Jay, bringing it as he always does. In a minute, we're going to get to Dirk. I haven't talked to Dirk in a minute. Good to see him in the waiting room. Wow. So we get breaking news here on the King's Court on If You Don't Like That Alex, this makes no sense, you all. Can we talk about this for a second? I'm looking at the Woj thing. If it's a straight up trade for Josh Giddey, I don't understand. If you're doing that if Chicago's doing that, to me, I almost want to say that you have suitors for Zach LaVine at this point, because you heard the reports about Chicago needing to sweeten the deal, but just almost a week ago, we heard reports that Chicago turned down a first round lottery pick for Alex Caruso, yet now you're trading him for Josh Giddey? I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around this in real time. Maybe my buddy Dirk can help me out with that. What's up, Dirk?
What's up, guys? Doing good. How about yourself?
Doing well. No complaints.
I am out on the Zach LaVine business. I was just looking up some stats on him, but he has the worst winning percentage of any All-Star ever.
Ever?
So he wins like something like 31% of his games. So I don't watch enough about him. So anecdotally, I'm talking to some people that watch more East Coast games, and he is a ball stopper and plays some of the worst defense you've ever seen. So why I trade with them, why I trade with the Bulls for him is because you're basically doing the Bulls a favor by trading for him. So they would need to give up something good to make that happen. And that was Alex Caruso to me.
Yep.
But he's off the market. So, has Herter been that bad that we need to get off that contract so much? I don't know. I
No.
don't want to give up both Harrison Barnes and Herter for Zach LaVine, because we'd be out 3 starters if Malik Monk is seemingly moving on. So I would want to keep Harrison Barnes out of it too. And I don't even want to know the financials you'd have to go through to make that work at this point. But I want to start looking outside the box at who are the guys we have been paying zero attention to.
Well, what position are you thinking?
Well, it's got to be guard. If Malik's gone, you need a playmaker.
I think to me, it's point guard and center. Those are the 2 positions that the Kings absolutely have to look at right now, because you only got Davion for another year until other teams can make offer sheets on him. Who knows if Davion's going to play the same type of basketball he played at the end of the year. I think Grant and I have been pretty firm on this. The Kings needed a veteran, solid backup point guard for the last season and a half, and it just hasn't happened. And so I think that is part of the reason that we've had a really big problem with Fox assist burn rate, because all the focus is on him and Sabonis. You need some more creators, not finishers. And then center Dirk, that's the other place I'm looking, because right now, Domantas Sabonis is your only center on the roster. Outside of Trey Lyles, they can play a little bit of small ball.
They could always run it back with Alex Len.
They could.
I don't think you're adding a lot of value. I don't think you're going to add a lot of value at the center position unless you just because you're never going to put another center in for extended length of time to take Sabonis out. That's not going to happen on this team. They're always going to give you got about 12 minutes to give the backup center position in an ideal situation. Alex Len, his plus minus numbers, not always considered the best stat, were phenomenal when he was in the game, because it gave a different look to the defense where you had a shot blocker in there, and he does an adequate job. It's just that within this Mike Brown offense, you expect nothing out of him offensively, which I think is a mistake. I mean, JaVale McGee showed you he could get buckets at the center position, which I thought he did really well all season. He must not grasp the defense. How do you feel JaVale was on offense?
I think if you took the lob away, he was what you expect. I think that's all that you expect from JaVale. Be around the rim, set some picks. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't great to me. I think that Alex Len was the better fit out of the 2. I thought Alex brought a little more physicality, and actually outside of playing above the rim, I thought Alex was actually the one that was a little bit more nimble on his feet, running with the guys on the fast break. So I would give the nod to Len over McGee.
I'll trust the coach and you in that decision. I mean, I felt like he was adding something offensively, and JaVale being a shot blocker, he's been teased a lot for Shaqtin' a fool, So yeah. I always wondered, what's the BBIQ there? Seems like a pretty articulate guy. They're listening to him talk. So I didn't have a lot to add today, but it's just I really don't want to pump the brakes on Zach LaVine. I mean, I've appreciated him from a distance, but there's a reason the Bulls want off of him so bad.
Correct.
And it's not like they were a winning team, right? So when you're not playing well and you need off a star player, your star guy, it's not a bargain sale at this point. It's a 3-year commitment. I liked your point there, Ryan. You want 3 years of this guy because there is not another Sacramento Kings team out there who is interested in trading for him. This is probably the last big deal he gets unless he has a renaissance. But he's almost 30. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and you bring a great point about Chicago wanting off of him so bad, and we could take it a step further. The rest of the NBA doesn't want any piece of him either. LaVine's been on the market for how long now?
Yeah, and there's the article, like, they've offered Zach LaVine 15 different ways to us, the 76ers.
Yep.
So what are you willing to give up? And they're not seeming willing to give up anything. Again, Alex Caruso had to be of interest in those deals to every team that they went inquiring for. So he was probably not one of, if many, of the 15 different offers that you saw, which is why I don't know what to make of this Giddey thing. I am not a Josh Giddey fan on the basketball court. I don't think he adds a lot personally, but I don't know. I'm just ready for this offseason to be done. Let's make these deals happen because I'm done
seriously.
There's nothing more.
Well, Dirk, really quick, I would say this. I would add in, maybe we're not looking at the other side of the coin. Maybe the Kings said, you know what? Nah, we're off the LaVine train too. So they're going a different way with Caruso, and they're getting rid of him, and they're making alternate plans. Speaking of Chicago, there's a million possibilities out there.
So if the Kings were sitting on a deal right now, there's nothing stopping them to pull the trigger on that trade, right? Like, no. At this point. What if it involves picks? Do the picks need to happen first before the trade can happen?
They can't. If it involves picks, the trade can't happen until draft night.
Okay. And everyone's been talking. We think the Kings are trading the 13th pick. So if there's a deal sitting out there waiting, we won't know until draft night that that's happening.
If it involves picks, yes, correct. I'm starting to turn a little bit on that. I was really convinced that pick was going to be traded. I'm not so sure anymore. There seems to be a little bit of an aura around Zach Edey right now, and especially coming off the success that the Mavericks had with two bigs and the Timberwolves had with two bigs this season, getting into the conference finals. Could he be a guy that could play with Sabonis and allow Sabonis to go to the 4? That's a big ass question, but it's not out of the question that the Kings are going to use this pick.
He definitely shot threes in his rookie campaign often, it would seem. I would like to see Sabonis shoot threes. The big challenge with that is, of course, who's going to rebound the ball. So it does potentially make sense, but can Sabonis shoot 40% at volume?
Well, we don't want him at volume. That's the thing. Grant and I kind of talked about this last night. I dropped it last night for the first time. The people that I've talked to around the organization, when I've asked, what is the focus this offseason with the guys? What do you want certain guys to get better at? One of the things that across the board that I've heard is free throws. And it's not just making your free throws, it's getting to the free throw line. The Kings looked at those numbers that I harped on, and I'm not saying they looked at them because of me, but free throw attempts this last year were down 16.8%, makes down 21.6%. That is a lot of points left on the table. So you need Sabonis to be able to shoot the three ball, where he can make a couple a game. He's not going to hesitate. He's a threat to take the shot, but you don't want him taking a ton of them either, because we saw what the trade-off was when Fox relied more on the three rather than getting to the hoop. The free throws suffered.
But how much of that is a product of the new foul calling rules?
Almost none of it.
The teams might be down, but I think league-wide free throws are down.
No, Dirk, this was before, I did a podcast on it. You can go find it way before the whistle changed. about the fact that free throws won't their attempts at that point in the season were like 600 or 700 off of their made free throws from the previous season. And that's before Monk went down. That's before any of that. So yeah, the whistle at the end of the season after the All-Star break changed. But for the majority of the season, we saw the Kings not getting to the line, like almost never. And the games that they did win down the stretch were the games where they made more free throws than the other team attempted.
I will say on the plus side for Zach LaVine, he's like last year was an 85% free throw shooter. In my quick research, so one criticism is he's not scoring through contact.
Yes.
That doesn't surprise me that free throws are down. You could look directly at De'Aaron Fox, I would say settling for the 3-pointer rather than penetrating, because it's usually in situations where someone breaks into the paint and either distributes to the open shooter or takes it all the way themselves, where they're going to get that contact and then, be out of position that's why they get called for foul. So it doesn't surprise me. I don't know that. I mean, the onus does fall on the individual to improve their free throw shooting, unless you hire a coach. I mean, Fox, I think the year before had improved and now regressed in efforts toward his, free throw shot. They're going to remain roughly the same to me. Can you think of a guy who, improved his free throw shooting 5 to 10% from early on and just held that higher free throw percentage after he quote unquote figured it out? When he's somewhere in the 70 to 80 range versus, let's say, the 50% to 60, like it's a little inconsequential at that point, personally.
Well, I think the problem last year was the frequency. I just think that they didn't get there enough. And when they did get there, it was a mental thing. So it was across the board. Guys that normally make free throws. You saw Barnes miss a few. Sabonis was missing a ton. Fox was missing a ton. Malik missed a ton. So I think that is a correctable situation. I don't think it's a coaching thing. I think it's get to the line and you're just going to be able to make your free throws because you're going to be more comfortable.
I would say it's a product of the offense. Personally.
Correct. Sure.
I think let's elaborate a little bit on that before I let you go and let other people have a chance to talk. But you put the keys in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis to run the offense, and guys don't get shots. Like, Harrison Barnes' shot is down, right? So staying in the rhythm, getting to touch the ball and stay, in tune with the offense is what I think leads to more confidence at the line, because you're not as cold. We talk about going the line as a way to warm up, or get your shot going. But I think you need more distribution of the ball, and the coach needs to take a bit of the reins back. And I would love to see more guys back cut to the hoop.
Yep.
From the corners, so we can get some, I could definitely see that in Keegan's game moving forward. Yep. And I would love another person making that. That needs to be a part of this offense. Whoever is in this offense, but that's all I got.
Dude, you know what? You nailed it there. You absolutely nailed it. And the problem was exactly what you said. The ball stalled, the ball died, and Zach LaVine, if you throw him into the mix, he is a ball stopper. He's not a ball mover, which complicates things even further. So well said. Well said. You always make it better. Thanks, Dirk.
See ya.
Later, buddy. Dirk with a great point. Listen to what Dirk just said. He is spot freaking on. I can't tell you how spot on Dirk was with that last comment. It is if you have ever played basketball, it makes a difference when you are touching the ball, even if you are not shooting the ball. You feel involved in the game. You feel like you're in the flow of the game. You feel like you could make a play at any minute. It is a completely different feel when you are not touching the ball. And then all of a sudden the ball comes to you with 7 on the shot clock and you have to make a play. It is not a good situation to be in. And Dirk nailed it. The back cuts last year were there for the Kings. You saw it at times when Mike Brown was taking the reins back, kind of what Dirk was talking about, and calling set plays. And the Kings were in different sets. And I know Part of this was teams zoned the Kings a decent amount. And I don't think the Kings did a great job of identifying the zone always. But once they did identify it, usually the Kings were able to get the ball to the middle and break the zones. And a lot of that is cutting. A lot of that is what Dirk was saying, give and goes. It's those little things. And it's even a step further off of what Dirk says. If you're running those back cuts, think about the 2001, 2002 Kings with Vlade and everybody else. You didn't know where the ball was going. And there was always 2 or 3 different options the guy with the ball had to make a play, whether it was somebody cutting back door, whether it was somebody coming behind them, whether it was somebody else coming to set a pick. You didn't know which way the action was going to go. So even if you are not back cutting every play, like Dirk was bringing up and referencing, if the threat is there that you may be trying to go backdoor, it completely changes how the defense has to guard you. It changes everything because then the defense has to be on alert. They don't know what's going to happen. They have to respect the different areas that they do not want to concede to you, which then opens things up for you as an offense. That was the most frustrating thing about these 82 games, the last season of the Kings, because you knew the ability was there to do the things that they needed to do to exploit the defense, to get mismatches that they wanted, and they just didn't do it. And they just didn't do it to the tune of when they were doing it, it was blatantly obvious. Exhibit 1. The play-in game against the Warriors. The Kings come out. They're running set plays. They're getting Keegan involved. It goes downhill. It's a big snowball. It's an avalanche. It starts off small, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that then it bleeds into the defense. Klay Thompson didn't make a damn shot that game. Everything has a cause and effect in basketball. You want to build the momentum as the game goes along. And the Kings had the ability to do it. The Kings have the ability to do it. They just didn't do it. And so that's what makes this offseason so difficult to swallow, even that much harder to dissect, because you find yourself asking yourself, wait, was it just an aberration last year? I mean, this team did win 48 games the year before, and I know they were healthier, but man, they had the best offensive rating in the history of the NBA. Man, you didn't know what Domas was going to do. The dribble handoff, Kevin Huerter, was somebody going to cut back door? Oh, De'Aaron Fox, he could blow by you at any time. And then poof, it's gone. So is this something, or are we blowing it out of proportion? Is this team not as far off as it feels like they are? Or was last year really the Kings? We don't know. And what makes it so much harder to judge is the fact that they ran it back and the rest of the league got so much better. So Dirk brings up some excellent points. He got me fired up there because he was spot damn on with those points. Let's get back to the chat. I have neglected the chat. Let's get in here and get your guys' reaction. 221 have checked into the Kings Court today. Really appreciate it. Grant and I are going to be back tonight at 8 p.m. Really looking forward to that. We'll be talking some more NBA draft, certainly talking Kings and anything else topical. This Alex Caruso trade, what do you make of it? My goodness, that changes everything. And as I sit here and I let it sink in a little bit more, I really hope part of that was the Kings passing on LaVine. And maybe, who knows, when things drop to the media, it could be because it's targeted at one team. It could be targeted at multiple suitors. But with Zach LaVine, he's been on the market for so long that the fact that the Kings reached out to the Bulls reportedly, I hope those talks are done. And that's why Caruso moved. A straight up trade for Zach LaVine at this point, it's, as I sit here more, it is not sitting well with me. And I know you're getting rid of two pieces that you feel like we need to get rid of, but Dirk is right. Barnes played 82 games for you last year in a season where you had your stars that were out a lot of the time. That is a bigger piece to give up than we are counting. And was Kevin Huerter really that bad? No, he wasn't really that bad. So this is, are we in a panic mode? Is the franchise in a panic mode? It kind of feels that way. I hope we are wrong. We will see as time goes along. 6 days until the draft. I want to get your guys' comments back up in here. The comments are going nuts right now. Dirk getting some love. Kings staying stagnant. Yep, they did. Herder and a second round pick for Levine. Dude, it's not. So I don't care if it's the ball boy and a Gatorade bottle for Levine. It's the contract past this year that I'm having a hard time getting over, Jay. It's a lot of money. A lot of money. And I know, Jay, you said, well, no, they'll go into the luxury tax. Keegan's not going anywhere. No, what if this place is a dumpster fire by the time it comes time to extend Keegan? You think Keegan's still going to want to stay in Sacramento? I don't think so. So that is why these next 6 months for the Kings are so imperative and so important. You have got to show the owner that there is a foundation here, that last year you found something despite the ups and downs. You found something to build on. You've got to show the owner, because here's what goes away. You ready for this? You make that Levine trade, you have now lost your flexibility. The saving grace of this Kings team this last year, you guys remember when Barnes re-signed? What was the first question a lot of people asked? Well, when could we trade him? When could we possibly get rid of Barnes? And so everybody then circled that. I think it was a December, January date. The Kings had the ability to be fluid last year if things weren't working out, running it back. Now, they didn't make any changes. You get rid of Herder, you get rid of Barnes, you no longer have that flexibility. You are locked in, and I mean locked in, to that roster. That might be a good thing. Maybe Levine resurrects his career in Sacramento. Maybe he doesn't. Dirk said, you heard the stats about, amongst the All-Stars. The only thing I would say about that is he has not played nearly the amount of games that a lot of those other guys have. And yes, Dirk chiming in again, OKC got much better. And Isaiah Hartenstein, a name that OKC is definitely looking at. What's up, horse? Okay, I won't. Dude, I saw you texted me too. Did you really text me? Not to neglect the chat. Check my DMs. What's in my DMs, horse? What the heck happened? Oh, you sent me the Woj bomb. Appreciate it, buddy. Look at that. I do have a producer with my back right now, sounding like the G-Man. No. Never like the G-Man. He is one of a kind. In fact, I am hoping the G-Man's going to join us. And by the way, you know who is going to join us after the draft? Gabriel Harris, the general manager of the Stockton Kings. He is smack in the middle of draft prep right now, scouting prep, because that is not just a Sacramento Kings thing. That is a Stockton Kings thing too. And I know that they are all members of one office, but it is on Stockton too to look for those diamonds in the rough that don't get drafted. Keon Ellis undrafted, and look at what the Kings were able to do with him. So I'm really looking forward, and I know Gabriel is looking forward to coming on here as well, maybe taking some of your questions, but it's going to be really interesting to talk to him on the record here about the processes, what the two parts of the organization have been doing, and the way they've been collaborating, and just how much of the focus really is on that player development speech. Yeah, I'm sorry. Dirk was so right that he got me onto, I guess, a little bit of a rant. But yeah, things have changed with Caruso gone. Things have changed dramatically. And let's just take a step back. I know Dirk put it in the chat. Oklahoma City, are they building a monster? This new CBA was supposed to help prohibit against dynasties. In Oklahoma City, they got to win one first, but they've got the draft picks. They've got the young star in SGA. I mean, Chet Holmgren's worked out well. What if Isaiah Hartenstein ends up there? Got Jalen Williams, who's got a ton of potential, who's already shown his potential. Oklahoma City is here to stay. That is insane that they got Caruso for that. My goodness. Breaking news happening on the Kings court. Keegan Murray and Herter were traded for Lauri Markkanen. Oh, they were? Really? You know, I would not be opposed to that. I'm not going to lie. Lau, what's up? Kings defense is already below average. Levine would make it even worse. Now, you got to talk about the two sides of the Kings and their defense. Their defense after the All-Star break was spectacular. And the key to that was Keon Ellis. And it wasn't just Keon how he played, or it wasn't, how do I put this? It wasn't so much Keon the player. I think it was a lot more about the balance that it brought to the starting lineup. And here's why. When you had Herter in the starting lineup, when you had a full deck of cards, there weren't enough shots to go around. There weren't. Many games, De'Aaron Fox would only take 2, 3, 4 shots in the first quarter. And so if you move a guy like Keon Ellis, where there is no expectation to run plays for him, there's no expectation to directly get him involved like you typically would, like a Zach LaVine. He comes to Sacramento, you got to get his ass involved. You have to. You've got to be running plays for him. He's a shooter. You've got to get him into the flow of the game. That is one more thing offensively that you have to worry about. And the ball stopping and the one-on-one play, the ISO play, it did not work. You know why? Because the Kings truly only have 2 players that are ISO guys, and one is probably on his way out in Malik Monk. But Malik was not always just ISO. He could do it both ways. He could play the pick and roll. He was a bright spot. He got Sabonis so many of those stats this season when he would come in with that second unit, when Fox would get that break. And it was a good change of pace too. You don't want to be running the same stuff all game. You want to be able to switch it up. So when you had Monk come in, running that pick and roll, doing something Fox really wasn't doing a lot of with Sabonis, it changed things. So defensively, I would say Keon Ellis gave the Kings the ability to adjust on the fly a lot more than they did with Kevin Herter on the court. And what I mean by that is Kevin Herter was more of a hedge guy. If you've ever been a basketball player, you know this term, hedge. It's if you're involved in defending a pick and roll, right? You've got to come out. You've got to hedge on the ball carrier. That means basically flash in front of them. Just make them stop for a quick second while your teammate gets through the screen, gets under the screen, whatever it may be. Well, with Keon Ellis, he doesn't have to hedge. The Kings could switch, and the Kings were able to switch between him, I know Kess got a little bit of time, Fox. In fact, it enabled De'Aaron Fox to basically play a little bit more of that free safety role, and that's when Fox's steals went way up. So Keon Ellis, not necessarily him, but I think that type of guard, that type of 2 guard is the kind of guard you need in this type of system, which I think really is, if we look at the sample sizes of the Kings over the last 2 seasons, what you saw at the end of the season is probably the closest thing to Mike Brown basketball that we have seen throughout Mike Brown's tenure. You know, the first year with the high-flying offense and up and down the court, tempo is always going to be part of Mike Brown's offense. That's always going to be part of it. But the 3 ball, not necessarily. The Kings actually did a very good job down this stretch of winning what I call special teams in basketball. Special teams is the transition game, and it's the free throw game. And to me, the Kings were winning those areas. It's also turnovers and taking advantage of turnovers. And the Kings were able to do that. They were able to get out, force the turnovers, and then make the teams pay for the turnovers. So I think there's a lot of things that Keon Ellis or that type of guard brings to a Mike Brown system that get you over the top. The Kings, if they are going to be successful in this Western Conference, they cannot be a team that's going to outscore everybody. They need to be a team that gets to 100 points first. The Kings get to 100 points first. I said this last season. I'll still say it today. The Kings will have a very good chance of winning most games because a lot of the games, the way that Mike Brown wants this team to play, in my opinion, are grinds. They are absolute grinds. And you do have some guys on this roster that can be dogs, but that is another thing you need to address. Zach LaVine is not a dog. Alex Caruso, he's a dog. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to go JaVale McGee with it. I know JaVale was doing the whole dog thing, calling people that during his interview, but the Kings do need a few more of those guys. Keon Ellis, to me, he's a dog. So I would like to see that stepped up for sure. Breaking news. Ryan Garcia has been suspended for a year. I guess that bad meat that he ate wasn't exactly the case with the dirty drug test. To me, boxing really is dead. If it weren't for Jake Paul, what is boxing these days? You got Mayweather, who was kind of in there past his prime. I mean, now I want to be fair. I don't follow boxing closely, but it seems like these, I don't know, do you call them dream fights? Like where you get a Tyson and a Jake Paul. It's not a dream fight from a boxing sense, but it's a dream fight in that you've got this legend of boxing versus this influencer who happens to actually be very good at boxing. I don't want to take anything away from him, but those are the things that to me have boxing holding on. So another blow for them. Jay in Humboldt always hit, Jay, I have got to read everything that you put in that little box of a chat before I even think about putting it on the screen. And now that I'm saying that, all of your chats have been on the screen. I hope I am not in trouble. Lau hopping back in. Good teams tend not to let a good player go for nothing in return. This is true. What is crazy is OKC is sitting on 1 million picks and didn't give up one, right? Dirk, like that's why it took me a minute as I'm talking with Jay and then I'm talking to you. I'm thinking, how does this deal get done with Oklahoma City? Because Alex Caruso, the Bulls turned down a first-round lottery pick this year for Alex Caruso. And the Thunder, if you looked at their roster and their makeup and some of the things that they may want to adjust coming off of being bounced out of the playoffs, it was clear that Giddey may not be in that long-term plan. So the Thunder just reach into their back pocket and say, this is the lowest bill that I have. Let's get rid of it. And they get Alex Caruso, a guy that like half the NBA chased last year at the trade deadline. It's insane. I'm having such a hard time wrapping my head around this one. All right, take over the chat, y'all. I love all of the involvement. I got to get some more up here. Bad news, sour grapes. Welcome in. Looks like Monty might, or excuse me, I'm reading your one below that. Wow, Caruso gone. Nobody wants to do business with the Kings. We have no valuable assets. Shake my head. You do have assets. You just have assets that you don't want to part with. Looks like Monty might as well sleep through the offseason. Again, he's not going to get any calls. Not necessarily. Look, there are some good free agents on the market. Let me throw a name at you right now. Dirk asked about this. Tyus Jones in Washington. I think Tyus Jones is a really good piece. So let's play this out for a second. Let's say the Kings sign Tyus Jones with the MLE. All right. So I doubt you're going to get him for the MLE, but let's play and pretend. Let's say you get Tyus Jones in here and you draft Zach Edey. Okay. You've got those two pieces now. Is that enough to at least get the Kings going, kickstart the Kings? And what do you think about Zach Edey? Because I keep coming back to that name. The Kings are intrigued with Zach Edey. They are certainly intrigued with the idea of him. 7'4", that's a big body. And, think about the other big bodies you have in the Western Conference. And here's another name that we're not talking about. Karl Anthony Towns. Minnesota ownership is going to reevaluate that team. And if I am reevaluating that team, the first piece I am looking at that might not quite fit is Cat. So there could be a lot more shakeups here in the Western Conference than we think. And so could it work? I mean, could you bring in a guy like Valanciunas? We've talked about him. He made $15 million this year. To me, Valanciunas, and I know he would command a bigger number than that, and we are assuming, talking about these names, that Malik Monk is going to move on. But Valanciunas, I think he meshes very well with Domantas. They know each other well. They've played against each other, played with each other. I think that is one of a handful of guys that could help Domas shift over to the 4, assuming Domas is able to add a few other things into his game. So there are options out there on the open market, but it becomes one of the challenges that the Kings have always faced, and that is getting free agents to come to Sacramento. That was kind of churning, right? That's what was also surprising about the Kings running it back, was there was a lot of intrigue around Sacramento. Like the Chappelle Show, when they did the which skit was it? The Prince skit, right? And they're talking about how all of a sudden Prince appeared, and then like all the smoke comes, and then you got Prince coming up like this. Like there was that smoke, there was that intrigue about this Kings team. Like, oh man, that might be a fun place to play basketball. They look like they're having fun, right? And the Kings didn't capitalize on it last season. And if you want to point at something that not a lot of people point at, it's that Domas extension. I've been sniffing around. We've asked the question a million times. Nobody's got a big, clear answer on what was off last season with the Kings in terms of the chemistry, what was off in the locker room. And the one answer that I can't get when I ask the question is this: did the Domas extension last offseason rub anybody the wrong way? And I have not gotten a straight answer to that. So I want to keep digging there, because I could see where that, like let's play a hypothetical here. This is strictly hypothetical and not off of any information that I have. De'Aaron Fox, coming off his first All-Star appearance, making the playoffs, breaking the 16-year playoff drought, right? He's probably on top of the world. Yeah, they didn't want to get bounced out in the first round in 7 games to the Warriors. But hey, look, it's a step forward, right? Now you've got a little bit of money to play with in the offseason. Fox, who everybody says, including the owner of the Sacramento Kings, how many times have we heard this story? I turned to this kid. That's what Vivek says about De'Aaron Fox. I turned to this kid and said, "Hey kid, I've got the keys to this beautiful vehicle. Do you want this vehicle to be yours? Do you want this house to be yours?" Well, this is technically, or at least from a PR standpoint, the Kings are De'Aaron Fox's team, right? It's De'Aaron's team. That's what everybody says. I say it when the Kings play bad. The onus falls on De'Aaron, right? When things go well, does De'Aaron get enough of the credit? I think he does. I know De'Aaron's not a big social media guy. I know he will clap back sometimes at the haters online, which totally fine with me. But basically, it's like, hey, when things are good, De'Aaron, you're on top of the world. When things are bad on this team, it's your fault. Everybody's looking your direction. So then you move into that off season where it's like, okay, well, I've only got a couple years left on my deal if I'm De'Aaron. I'm also hitting my prime. I'm enjoying playing with Sabonis. Sabonis doesn't appear to be going anywhere. We have that money to play with, right? And then instead of playing with the money, you bring back Lyles, good move. You re-signed Barnes. I think it was a fair move for the money. Who else were you going to get at that price, right? But you still had money to play with at that point. And what do? You extend Sabonis. Think about that. Not only do you extend Sabonis, you pay him more than you're paying De'Aaron Fox in the long run. So now, whose team is it really? Is it really De'Aaron's team? Well, PR-wise, appearance-wise, it's De'Aaron's team, but is it? If you're De'Aaron Fox, why is the onus, why is the blame falling on me? I'm not the guy. He's the guy in Sabonis. And by the way, why didn't you do something to improve this team? Domas wasn't going anywhere. He'd made it pretty clear that he likes it here in Sacramento. He's used to playing in small markets. It was a good fit. I enjoy playing with him, but there was no immediate rush to lock Domas up through 27, 28. We could have used that. I forget how much Domas got last summer. But we could have used that to bring in another piece, but we didn't. So we're just going to run it back. And now things aren't quite the same. You hit a few roadblocks. You go through some injuries. You go through some adversity, but yet the blame is still on De'Aaron Fox. And Sabonis gets praised for playing through injuries. De'Aaron traditionally gets slammed for not playing injured. De'Aaron did everything he could to get back to the court with that ankle early in the season. And then late in the season, do you not remember that De'Aaron rolled his ankle and he played through it? I know Sabonis rolled his ankle and then also Sabonis took a bad step, but De'Aaron's laid it all out for this team. So now that I'm De'Aaron Fox and it was an up and down year, and I'm coming into a spot where, yes, I have 2 years left on my contract, but for all intensive purposes, like you're seeing right now go on with Mitchell in Cleveland. I can bring up other examples. OG, we talked about some of them. Pascal. Well, Pascal's a free agent, but we talked about these basically player options and or the teams having the bird rights to negotiate with them. Well, you see guys usually at De'Aaron's level or at an all-star level, if they've got a year left on their deal, they don't usually go into the season as a lame duck unless the team is not sold on them. And by the time De'Aaron only has 1 year left on his deal, he'll be going into year 9. Year 9. And so if I'm De'Aaron Fox, I'm looking at the Kings' history, right? What did the Kings usually do in these situations? Whether it was old ownership or new ownership. I know what they did with DeMarcus Cousins. They weren't going to give him the supermax. They weren't going to extend him all the way, right? So is there some uncertainty there? And could it have started last season? And again, this is all a hypothetical, but these are all very real situations that could happen. There are egos involved in the NBA. And that's why I've been saying now that this is Domas's team. This isn't De'Aaron's team. And when I talk about the Kings having these big decisions coming up in the near future, that's the decision, you all. When was the last time the Kings did a double, gave somebody a second contract after giving them the max? I can't think of a single time. Think about it. Richmond moved on. Cousins moved on. Let's see. Webb, he moved on. Bibby traded. It just, I mean, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Is there writing on the wall that we just are not seeing quite clear yet? And that's why I say, going back to Levine, these are really big decisions. These aren't just this year decisions. You got to think about the dynamics, the messaging, right? That's going to send to a guy like De'Aaron Fox. That's going to send to a guy like Keegan Murray. It's complicated. And so that is why this offseason is so delicate. incredibly delicate. I'm talking like presidential politics delicate. The Kings have to be very calculated in everything they do, but it would be so much damn easier if we had answers to the questions that we continue to ask, but we don't. We're going to keep trying to get them, but the Kings now are teetering on the edge of being the Bulls. They are. If you take on this Levine contract, you are almost trading spots with the Bulls. Caruso would have sweetened the deal. Caruso may have made it worth it, especially if you could have re-signed Caruso, assuming he liked to play here in Sacramento. But I don't see how how Levine coming to Sacramento works. I don't. That call with Dirk, it really convinced me. And it wasn't the stats. It's talking through it, talking about what the Kings want to do, how they want to play. Physicality, right? We say the Kings need more dogs. Zach LaVine ain't a dog. So it is an interesting offseason. And it begins, by the way, it begins on Thursday. We are 6 days away from the NBA draft. Really looking forward to that. Now, yes, it was different ownership, but right, Mitch was traded for C-Web, but Mitch was going to be due another contract, y'all. That is what I am saying. So it's these are some big decisions. These are going to be some very, very huge decisions. Here's what I would do, by the way. If you're a future guy, if you like to bet a little bit, I'd throw some money on the Kings to win the Pacific Division this year. I think a lot of the problems they had last year are correctable this year. So we will see. Hey, y'all, we are going to be back tonight at 8 o'clock. Grant and I getting back together. It was nice to do the show with Grant last night. We got into some heavier topics at times, but the passing of Willie Mays, still, we've lost so many legends in the past few years. It has been very, very tough. So make sure that you are subscribed to If You Don't Like That. Already 7.1 thousand of you subscribed. We appreciate it. You can find out when we go live also on YouTube. That is where you can participate in the shows and chat. I believe also you can do that on X. You just got to minimize the video and then bring up the chat option. If not, go to YouTube. We would appreciate it. And thank you to everybody else that's subscribed. Give us a big thumbs up as well. We would really appreciate it. And then, as you know, the King's Court is in session. That link will take you to my X page. You can find the links for both Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I don't know why it didn't upload this morning. It is now live. We're getting that worked out. I did move over to a different system with an agency. So anyways, we are getting the kinks worked out, but everything is great. Thank you to all of you that made that show what it is. And you get your morning shoot-arounds and then our live shows like this. Tomorrow, we are going to have our fun day. Fridays are kind of a fun day here in the King's Court. Anybody is welcome to come on the show. Yes, that usually means that you're going to get a dose of Haunted Horse. Yeah, I can see him right now in the chat, probably taking laps, high-fiving everybody, getting them pumped up for his 20 or 30-minute segment. Patrick is off the clock. You know I got to recognize my man, Patrick. I love when he drops in from Long Island. Glad you're off the clock, buddy. You missed a fun show today. Great calls from Dirk, Jay, and others. Some very good combinations. And certainly when we heard about, by the way, Patrick, if you didn't hear, Alex Caruso traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Josh Giddey. Here's our reaction.
How about no?
We don't like it. Doesn't make sense. Kings, get out of the Zach LaVine business. I am in that camp right now. Yeah, Here we go. He's coming in on Friday. He's already preparing right now. Hey, just make sure your IT stuff works, man. Make sure your mic's working. Make sure we're all good to go. Bad news, sour grapes. I feel the Kings are going to run it back again and regress even more. They are not going to run it back again. I can promise that. Yeah, definitely do not bet your house on it. Do not bet anything you can't afford to lose. I'm not a gambling guy, but I am going to do this. Get this. So if you've been around the show this week, tomorrow I turn 40 years old. It's a milestone. Maybe I'll have to come up with like a memory for each decade of my life that I'll share with you guys. I don't know. But I don't really gamble much. I don't. And if you've been here this week, we're headed to Tahoe for the weekend. And I decided finally that I want to try playing slots one time. I've never really sat down at a slot and played it for, 10, 15 minutes. I've done the, like one in the airport where you pull the lever or whatever, but I think that's the one that I want to try. I've been seeing it online. So I told the wife last night, I said, you know what? I think I want to play a couple bucks of slots and see what happens. Who knows? Might get lucky. I heard that piggy game is the best one to do, not just from you, Horse, but from others. But the highlight of that trip is we are going to be going to Hell's Kitchen. So I'm very, very excited about that. Dude, I know. So Adam, I was in your camp about slots because you're letting a computer determine your odds, right? Like, whereas with blackjack, it's like, okay, if I want to hit, I can hit. If I want to stay, I can stay. And I know the cards are predetermined, or not predetermined, but you can't determine the cards, whatever. You get my idea. They're odds. You know the odds. With a slot machine, I don't know the damn odds. The machine could just say, hey, I don't like that you're wearing a King's hat, so I'm not going to pay you any money. I don't know. So, I usually don't do it, but I do want to do it. Yeah, I guess my parents planned that right, Lau? The longest day of the year. It's actually today is the longest day of the year. Tomorrow is the first day of summer. That has been the thing that they have always hung their hat on. I will give you one quick story before we wrap up. So I'm gonna give you, since there's 4 decades that I've been alive, I'm gonna give you the 10 between 10 and 20 years old, 16 years old, really quick, and then we're gonna adjourn. Check this out. See, you guys are breaking me here. You guys are breaking me. You're telling me not to do the slots. What happens if I do the slots and come Monday, there's no more King's Court because Ryno owns an island somewhere because I hit the piggy slot. All 3 of them exploded. I'm just kidding. King's Court would still go on. Definitely. You know what? Bad news. I have had success at the roulette table in the past. I'm not going to lie. I have 4 numbers that if I ever play roulette, that I always play with one of those that I definitely play on its own as well. And I hit that back-to-back one time. I think it was like $2,000. So anyways, I sound like a compulsive gambler. I'm not. I can promise you. Any of you that know my wife know that no chance that she lets me do that. So anyways, 16th birthday. I'll share this one, then I'll get out of here. We'll clear the day for tomorrow. The deal was my parents said, we will match anything that you save up for a car. So Ryan, if you save up $2,500, we will give you $2,500. We will match it, whatever you save. Well, little Ryno, not being a very good saver, because little Ryno sure as hell loved his sports cards. I was at the card shop, and it wasn't just the card shop. Y'all remember they'd sell posters too. It's where you used to be able to get the best sports posters ever. Not Walmart, not any of the other stores. You had to get them from the card shop. So anyways, a lot of little Ryno's money went to the card shop, probably went to some food too. If you're an Elk Grove person, there used to be a place in Old Elk Grove called Jed's, and it was a mom and pop's burger shop. They were the only 2 people that ever worked there, and it was freaking phenomenal. The best ranch in the world, pineapple milkshakes, burgers. So a decent amount of Little Rhino's money went to Jed's as well. But anyways, my birthday came around, and my dad has always done this thing. I guess his dad did it for him, but on birthdays or Christmas, anytime you'd be giving a card, he would throw a couple scratchers in there. And so, I get my card, and there's a birthday check and whatnot, and then there's 3 scratchers. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm gonna scratch these guys off, right? And so I scratch off the biggest one, loser, scratch off the second biggest one, and I'm like,
How about no?
no winning. And then I go to the smallest of the 3 scratchers, scratch it off. It says that it's $1 scratcher, but I could win up to $50,000. Start scratching away feverishly, hoping that I win something. And I'm looking at it, and it says 50. And I'm like, no way. And then right below it, another 50,000. I'm like, no, it's definitely gonna be like a free scratcher kind of thing. Scratch off the third one. It says $50,000. I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, holy shit, I just won $50,000. I'm looking down, looking up, looking at my girlfriend, looking at my brother. Like, look at this. Look at this. This says I won $50,000. They're looking like, you won $50,000. I'm like, Mom, Dad, look at the scratcher. I won $50,000. And my dad takes a long look at it, turns it over, looks at it. Holy shit, Ryan, you won. My ass went running down the street and damn near out of the neighborhood like Forrest Gump. I thought I had hit the freaking jackpot. Come to find out, my parents hopped in the car, came to pick me up to tell me the scratcher was fake. Yeah, that is going to be my memory from years 10 to 20. They duped me. Of all days, they duped me with a fake scratcher. At 16, that's before Amazon. You didn't know there was fake scratchers out there. My goodness. But anyways, hey, thank you so much. It's been a fun day, fun show. We're going to be back at 8 o'clock tonight. Grant and I will be taking your questions. Make sure you call. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. We can talk basketball. We can talk football. We can talk whatever. Bring it up. We will hit it. We always have a fun time with those open forum and scrum shows. A lot of great content today. I can't thank all of you enough. Bane, thank you again for the special birthday chat last night to Grant and I. We really, really appreciate that. And yeah, make it a good one. It is going to be a fun next 6 days leading up to the NBA draft. And we are going to get you ready. I've already got my list of guys that I think the Kings have narrowed it down to. If they keep the pick, we're going to go over those, probably some tonight on If You Don't Like That. And we will expand on those tomorrow as we wrap up the week on the Kings Court Live. Thank you again to Dora. Hit it.
Holy moly, Jim Bob Bowley.
Yes, indeed. Holy moly, Jim Bob Bully. A tribute to the one and only Jerry Reynolds. Go Kings! Light the damn beam. Court is dismissed until tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Come back at 8 p.m. So long.